tell you my story. I'm here to tell you why I'm pro-life. You may have noticed the recent scandal with Planned Parenthood all over social media and the news about harvesting baby organs for sale. And because of that, people are speaking out. Speaking out with their story, speaking out whether or not they're pro-life or pro-choice, and just having that conversation in general about abortion. Something a lot of people don't do because it's so personal. But the more we talk about it, the more we bring awareness to the subject, the more people we can help. And that is my mission. What I'm about to tell you might come as a surprise to my friends and family, but this message is not for my friends and family. This message is for the women that need to hear it, for the women who have been in my shoes, for the women who may be in my shoes down the line, or for the women that just need to hear a message of hope, to know that there are other options. Being pro-life hasn't always been the case for me. In fact, I was very pro-choice. And being pro-life today definitely came at a cost. So this is my story. About 10 years ago, maybe longer, my high school sweetheart and I, who is now my husband, found ourselves in a situation that a lot of young people find themselves in. This is my husband. We were young and in love and just wanted to be together all of the time. And living in a sexualized culture, it was easy to fall into that temptation without regard to consequence. So we found ourselves in a situation where I became pregnant, and the fear and panic automatically set in. The fear is so overwhelming and it's so real that it outweighs any other rational decision. We knew we had a support system in our parents, but we didn't want to disappoint them. We didn't want to let anyone down. We didn't want to be perceived in a way that was shameful. So we didn't tell anybody. We kept it to ourselves. The only thing that we could think of is, how do we fix this? So we call the experts who we know are going to fix the problem, Planned Parenthood. Planned Parenthood are experts at fixing the problem, but that's the problem. They're only fixing what is a perceived problem, and they're not informing women of all options. So they confirmed that the pregnancy was positive. We get in there, and they did take a sonogram, but you weren't allowed to see the sonogram. I couldn't see my baby, and I know that a big part of that is because they know if you see the baby, that you would be more inclined to keep it. So I didn't get to see my baby. I didn't get to feel that connection. They had the money that they needed, and not long after that, I went through with the procedure. The procedure itself was extremely painful. It was unbearable. There are no words to describe what that was like. There wasn't any support in the room. The doctors just saw me as one of many that day, and I was crying and I was moving and I was shaking. The only thing they could tell me was to stop crying, stop moving, stop shaking. They were already behind and they needed to get through this procedure. So I lay there as tears streamed down my face, realizing that this was a choice that I had made. I had exercised my right to choose, but with that choice meant taking the life of another human being, and not just any human being, my child. I can't really describe the way that I felt when it was over, but I can tell you that it definitely wasn't relief. It was automatic shame and regret and a loss. I will tell you this, that when you become pregnant, your maternal instinct automatically kicks in, your parental instinct automatically kicks in. But when you're in a situation where you don't feel that you're ready, that fear again outweighs all of that. So I was fighting my maternal instinct to protect my child for my own convenience. And there was nobody there to tell me that I had another choice. And I did have another choice, and I realized that today. But in that moment, I didn't feel as though I had another choice. I made myself a promise in that moment that I would never do this again, not to myself and not to my future children. But I had to move on because what was done was done. But I knew that I would never want to experience that again. So life went on, and my husband and I went to college, and shortly after that, we actually found ourselves in the same situation just 2 years later. The fear automatically set in again, and this time we had a greater stake on the line. We were both in college, and we were starting our careers as adults, and we didn't want to give that up. But I had made myself a promise. But despite that promise, the fear was so great again that I was willing to go through with it again, even though I promised myself that I wouldn't. So again, I made another appointment, got the funds that I needed from the state, and I was on my way to my second abortion appointment. Something happened on the way to that appointment that is very hard to describe. All I know is that this time I could not fight that maternal instinct. I could not fight that parental instinct. It was just too strong. And I just kept thinking about the promise that I made myself. And I realized that that promise was worth keeping. I wasn't ready. I was still fearful, but I couldn't bring myself again to go through that or to take the life of another human being. Literally on my way to my second abortion appointment, I turned around and found the nearest exit I could. And the joy that came over me was so overwhelming. And 6 months later, my first daughter, Amaya, was born. This is the moment that I became pro-life. No amount of education or career goals or life goals could ever amount to the way my life is because she's in it. She is such a blessing. I've spent the last 10 years realizing the value of human life, and I have regretted and felt shame and felt guilt for what I did for my first abortion. Thank God for deliverance because I have been set free from that. It's something that I will never forget, but I know that I'm forgiven. And because of that, I feel like I have found my calling. I just love how God takes our mess and makes it his message. Nothing that we've ever gone through, any suffering, any pain is in vain. It all is used for a greater good, a greater glory, and this is a perfect example of that. Even though I went through something pretty horrific, I can now use that experience to help others. And actually, one of the first things that I did for myself was to visit the Planned Parenthood where I left my baby over 10 years ago. I just sat in the parking lot and just started to think about my experience, and all of these memories came back, memories that I had suppressed, memories that I locked away just because I didn't want to feel those emotions. But with that means you don't really acknowledge that life, and I got to the point where I needed to acknowledge that life. I often think about what my baby's life would be like. So I went back and I sat in the parking lot and I just spoke to him and I said, you know, I'm sorry for what I did, but I will honor your life and remember your life and do that by helping others. I know what it's like to be in a difficult life situation and subsequently choose abortion because of that. But I also know what it's like to choose life in spite of circumstance. I am not here to cast judgment or to shame anybody. I was you, I am you, and I hope to be able to come across women and men or anybody like you that maybe one day I can help. I'm hoping that by sharing my experience, it lets women and men know that they are not alone. There is help. If you have experienced an abortion, there is healing and recovery for you. If you are experiencing an unplanned pregnancy, reach out to your local pregnancy crisis resource center to learn about countless life-affirming resources for you and your baby after birth. I've had a really long journey and I've learned a lot along the way. I may be very boldly pro-life, but my goal is to help women save lives and just share my experience and share a part of me that can help somebody someday. You know, since my experience, I've had many blessings. I have a wonderful husband. We got married. Him and I shared this experience together, and we ended up getting married and having a beautiful family, including our firstborn Amaya that I showed you earlier. And since then, we've actually been blessed with a second daughter, Justine, who's also been such a blessing. And this is her, beautiful Justine. So precious. It is often assumed that being pro-life infringes on women's rights, but nothing could be farther from the truth. I am for women, I am for children, and I am for life. If this message resonates with you, please feel free to reach out if you need help. If you need somebody to listen to, don't hesitate to ask. Feel free to message me, and then feel free to share this message with somebody that you think could benefit from hearing it, whether it's on your page, whether it's to somebody one-on-one, but help me get the message out there for women and men that need to hear it. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to my story, and hopefully it inspired you. Thank you.